It happened on a Tuesday, right after the coffee machine finally started working again. I remember that because the room smelled faintly of burnt espresso and lemon cleaner, the kind facilities used every morning around 9. We were in the cafeteria, not for a meeting, just one of those loose, standing check-ins people pretended were culture. Someone was unwrapping a granola bar, someone else laughed too loudly at nothing. Then Mark climbed onto one of the tables, not metaphorically, actually climbed up, shoes on the laminate, knocking over a chair with his heel. He held his phone like a prop and said, loud enough for the whole room, "Quick update, we're cutting dead weight." A few people froze. Coffee cups stopped halfway to mouths. He pointed straight at me. "Rachel," he said, "you're done here, effective immediately." I didn't say anything. I didn't look around. I just stood there, hands at my sides, listening to the quiet that follows a bad accident. Someone behind me whispered my name. Someone else coughed. Mark smiled, the way people do when they think confidence looks like volume. I reached into my bag and pulled out my keys. Not all of them, just the main ring. I walked up, set them on the table near his ankle, and said, "Good luck." That was it. What he didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that those keys weren't really for doors anymore. And 3 days later, I would be sitting in my car, staring at a blue binder I hadn't opened in years, while my phone stayed face down on the passenger seat. I had worked at Northway Systems for just over 10 years. I didn't have a big title. I never asked for one. My desk was near the back, close to the server room and the loading dock, where things hummed and rattled and needed attention. I liked it there. Less noise, more truth. Mark had taken over 2 months earlier, right after his father stepped away. Interim CEO, they called it. He talked about vision. He rearranged teams. He stopped listening. That morning, before the cafeteria, I'd already fixed a badge reader that kept rejecting night staff and signed off on a maintenance override so the West Wing wouldn't overheat again. No one noticed. They usually didn't. After he fired me, I walked past reception, past the interns, past a poster that said "Build Together" in a font no one liked. The elevator ride down took longer than usual, or maybe I just noticed it more. Outside, the parking garage was cool and dim. Concrete, oil stains, the echo of footsteps. I sat in my car without starting it. The keys were heavier than they should have been, not because of the metal, because of what they represented. Access, responsibility, names written into places people forgot to look. I opened the glove compartment and pulled out the binder. Blue, faded at the edges, labeled in my handwriting, facilities, compliance, custodian. I hadn't planned to look at it. I just needed to see it there. I closed the compartment again, set the binder on the seat, put my hands on the steering wheel. Then I waited. I didn't drive home right away. The garage stayed quiet, just the low whine of a ventilation fan somewhere above me. I opened the binder on the passenger seat and let it rest there, untouched, like you do with something fragile. The cover creaked when it bent. Paper smell, dust, familiar. That binder had followed me through 3 office moves, 2 mergers that never quite happened, and 1 electrical fire everyone pretended wasn't a big deal. It wasn't sentimental, it was practical, the kind of thing you keep because someday someone will ask a question and you'll need the answer fast. I closed it again and finally started the car. At home, the front door stuck the way it always had, just enough to remind you to lean into it. I kicked it open, dropped my bag by the counter, and stood there longer than necessary. The apartment was quiet. No emails, no alerts, no system logs ticking in the back of my mind. I made tea. Let it steep too long. Only then did I sit at the table and open the binder properly. Page 1 still had my name on it, not as an employee, as custodian. 10 years earlier, Northway had been smaller, fewer floors, fewer rules. Back then, someone needed to be responsible for the things that didn't fit neatly into departments. The leases, the access layers, the backup credentials nobody wanted to think about until something broke at 2 in the morning, that someone had been me. I didn't push for it. I just kept showing up when things went wrong. I stayed late when the network stalled. I learned which vendors needed hand-holding and which ones needed firm deadlines. When compliance asked who actually understood both the physical infrastructure and the paperwork, my name kept coming up. Eventually, it stuck. There were forms I signed that no one ever asked about again, federal filings, vendor custodianship records, emergency transition clauses buried in contracts no one reread after the ink dried. Not power, exactly. just responsibility with a long memory. Mark never asked about any of that. He talked about flattening hierarchy, about speed, about cutting what he called legacy friction. The morning he fired me, he'd already let 2 other people go over video calls, muted them halfway through their sentences. It wasn't personal, he'd said later. It was efficiency. I didn't take it personally either. I took it literally. That afternoon, my phone buzzed once. Then again. I didn't answer. I put it face down and turned another page in the binder. There were tabs for vendors, for access protocols, for contingency steps that started with words like, in the event of and pending verification. I hadn't written most of it at once. It was built slowly, over years, after problems left marks. I wasn't angry, not yet. What I felt was something quieter. The absence of obligation. The understanding that when you remove yourself from a system, the system doesn't adjust emotionally, it adjusts procedurally. I made a short list on a notepad, not names, just categories, facilities, security, hosting. Then I stopped. Outside, a car alarm chirped and went quiet. My tea had gone cold. I wrapped my hands around the mug anyway, and sat there, reading without urgency. I didn't need to do anything that day, so I didn't. The first call came the next morning, just after 8. I was still in my kitchen, rinsing the mug I hadn't finished the night before. The phone buzzed against the counter. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hey," I said. There was a pause, then a familiar voice. "Laura, hosting services. We'd worked together for years." "Rachel," she said carefully, "we got an automated notice overnight. Your approval address bounced. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "I just wanted to let you know I'm no longer authorized to approve maintenance overrides on Northway's systems." Silence. "But you're still listed as primary," she said. "Not my circus anymore." Another pause. Longer this time. "Okay," she said. "Then we'll freeze non-essential actions until we receive updated custodial credentials." "That's the correct procedure," I said. We hung up politely. No tension, no drama. I didn't smile. I just wrote one word on my notepad and crossed it out. The next call was to Marcus, physical security vendor, badge systems, cameras, access logs. He laughed when I told him I'd been let go. "That explains the errors," he said. "They tried to reboot the controller without a transfer token, locked themselves out. They'll need to work with someone else now," I said. "Already told them," he replied. "They asked if we could bypass it." "And?" "System won't allow it," he said. "You designed it that way." After that, I stopped calling. I didn't need to explain anything to anyone else. The process was already in motion. When custodial authority disappears without a handoff, systems don't fail loudly. They hesitate, they pause, they wait for confirmation that never comes. Around noon, I opened my laptop and logged into an old Slack account I'd never bothered to deactivate. Burner login, read only. I hadn't touched it in months. The first message I saw was simple. "Does anyone know why the vendor portal says pending credential verification?" Then another. "Who handles compliance approvals now?" Then, wasn't Rachel the contact for this? I closed the laptop. That afternoon, I went for a walk. Slow, around the block, past the dry cleaner and the empty storefront that had been coming soon for years. When I got back, there was a voicemail waiting. Finance this time. I didn't listen to it. By evening, my phone had gone quiet again. At Northway, people were discovering how many things had my name attached to them, not out of ego, out of continuity. Every system had assumed I'd still be there tomorrow. No one had planned for the possibility that I wouldn't be. That night, I made dinner. Simple. Cleaned as I went. I slept better than I had in weeks. I wasn't doing anything to them. I was just no longer doing anything for them, and that was the shift. By the 4th day, the noise reached a level you could feel without listening to it. I knew because my phone started lighting up again. Not frantic, not yet. Just controlled urgency. Messages that began with quick question and ended without punctuation. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I sat at my desk at home and did something I hadn't done in a long time. I thought in steps, not emotionally, procedurally. Step 1. Remain unavailable. Not hostile, not hidden, simply unavailable. Step 2. Allow third parties to enforce their own rules. Vendors, regulators, systems designed to pause when authority goes missing. Step 3. Document everything, not for revenge, for clarity. That was it. No theatrics, no confrontation. Silence, used correctly, does most of the work. Late that morning, I finally listened to one voicemail. It was from payroll, a director I barely knew. Her voice was tight. "Hi, Rachel. We're running into a validation loop with routing authorization. It's probably nothing. Could you call me back when you get a chance?" I deleted it. An hour later, another call. This time from facilities, then procurement. I let them stack up. Around 2, I got curious. Logged back into Slack. Scrolled. People were outside the building. Badge readers blinking red. Someone posted a photo of a line of employees standing in the cold, coffee cups steaming, waiting to be let in like it was a snow day nobody planned for. It had joined the channel. "We can't issue new badges until the master override is transferred." Someone replied, "To who?" There was a gap. Then, the root user was Rachel. That one sat there for a while. I closed Slack again and went back to my notes. The thing about authority is that it doesn't announce itself. It sits quietly in documents and systems until it's tested. When people forget where it lives, they assume it can be recreated quickly. It usually can't. That afternoon, I took a call I hadn't expected. A number I didn't recognize. "Rachel," the woman said when I answered. Calm. Professional. "This is Dana. I'm with Archer Consulting. Do you have a moment?" I did. She didn't waste time. "We've been trying to understand how Northway maintained compliance stability during their growth phase," she said. "Your name keeps coming up. I hear you're no longer there." "I'm not," I said. "Would you be open to a conversation?" We met the next morning. Glass office. Quiet. No theatrics. She slid my resume back across the table like it was a formality. The meeting took 8 minutes. They didn't ask why I'd left. They asked what I knew, what I'd signed, what I'd stabilized when no one was watching. I walked out with a consulting contract and a start date. Across town, Northway was still trying to reboot systems that didn't want to be rushed. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table again. Same chair, same light. Binder open, but this time I wasn't reviewing the past. I was organizing the future. One page at a time. Then I closed it, put my phone face down, and waited for the next call. It came sooner than expected. The call came just before 8 in the morning. Not a number I recognized, but the timing told me enough. I answered while standing at the window, watching traffic stack up at the light across the street. "Rachel," a man said, calm, measured. "This is Daniel Price, General Counsel for Northway Systems." I didn't interrupt him. "We're reviewing a number of compliance issues," he continued, "and your name appears as custodian of record on several active filings. We need to clarify your current status." "I was terminated," I said, publicly, without offboarding. There was a pause, paper shifting, someone else breathing on the line. "I see," he said. "Would you be willing to come in for a discussion?" "Yes," I said. "If it's scheduled." It was. They chose a conference room I'd never used before. Too bright, too much glass. I arrived early, set my bag down, and waited. When they came in, it wasn't just legal. Finance was there, operations. Mark, sitting off to the side, arms crossed, jaw tight. No one raised their voice. Daniel opened with facts, dates, filings, screenshots from federal portals showing my name still active. Vendor emails requesting confirmation I could no longer provide. A timeline that didn't argue. It simply existed. Mark tried once. "This is legacy stuff," he said. "We're modernizing." Daniel didn't look at him. Legacy or not, these systems require a verified custodian. There was no transition. Finance slid a folder across the table. Insurance clauses, audit triggers, a highlighted paragraph that began with, "in the absence of." I spoke once. "I didn't lock anything," I said. "I stopped authorizing." No one contradicted that. Mark leaned forward, frustration finally leaking through. "You made yourself impossible to replace." Daniel looked at him then. "No," he said. "We failed to replace her." Silence followed. Not dramatic, just complete. They asked what it would take to resolve it. I answered carefully. "Documentation," I said. "Time, proper reassignment, and someone qualified to accept custody." Mark exhaled sharply. "So what? We beg?" "No," I said. "You follow procedure." That seemed to land harder than anything else. The meeting ended without a resolution, Just an understanding, the kind that settles in after denial runs out. I walked out the same way I'd walked in, calm, unrushed. Outside, my phone buzzed with a message from Dana at Archer. Still good for Monday? I replied, yes. Then I put the phone away and went home. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces, clean, documented, impossible to argue with. 2 days after that meeting, Northway's largest pending deal paused. Not canceled, just paused. The legal kind of pause that drains momentum and invites scrutiny. Their compliance team requested updated custodial verification. The request bounced, then escalated. This time, the inquiry didn't go to Northway. It came to me. I took the call at my new desk. 5th floor. Quiet building. Neutral furniture that didn't try to impress anyone. The man on the line introduced himself, confirmed my identity, and asked 3 questions. Was I the last verified custodian of record? Yes. Had I been formally transitioned out of that role? No. Could I attest to the current compliance posture of Northway systems? No, I could not. That was the entire conversation. I didn't editorialize. I didn't speculate. I didn't add context. I answered exactly what was asked and nothing more. When the call ended, I wrote down the time and who I'd spoken to. Then I closed the notebook. By the end of the week, the pause became a withdrawal. Northway received a short email, polite, precise. It cited unresolved custodial authority and an incomplete compliance chain. No accusations, no threats, just a decision. Inside Northway, that decision triggered others. Insurance requested clarification. Vendors froze renewals. One audit expanded into 2. Every form they touched seemed to surface my name like a watermark they'd forgotten to remove. The board called an emergency session. I wasn't there, but I didn't need to be. Daniel called me afterward, voice tired now. The board understands the scope, he said. They're asking what remediation would look like. I told him the truth. 30 days minimum, I said, assuming everything is done correctly this time. He thanked me, not warmly, respectfully. The following Monday, Mark was removed as interim CEO. No announcement, no speech, just an update in the org chart and a calendar invite that disappeared. He didn't reach out to me. Neither did I to him. There was nothing left to say. Northway didn't collapse. That's important. They shrank, contracts renegotiated, expansion plans shelved, a company forced to relearn the value of slow, boring correctness. At Archer, my work settled into rhythm. Advisory reviews, transition planning, the quiet satisfaction of systems that behaved the way they were supposed to because someone respected their limits. One afternoon, a courier dropped off an envelope at my desk. No logo, just my name. Inside was a single note, thanking me for clarity, for professionalism, for not making things worse than they already were. I folded it once and placed it in the binder, not as a trophy, as a record. That evening, I went home on time, cooked dinner, washed the dishes, put everything back where it belonged. For the first time in years, nothing followed me home. A few weeks later, my mornings started to look the same again. Up early, window cracked just enough to let the city in. Kettle on, 1 cup, not 2. I wiped the counter before sitting down, a habit I'd picked up years ago when order was something you created yourself. The binder lived on a shelf now, not hidden, not displayed, just there. I didn't open it anymore. I didn't need to. From my desk, I could see the building where Northway used to feel permanent. It didn't look broken. It just looked quieter. Fewer lights on after hours, fewer people moving with urgency, a place learning slowly that structure isn't noise, it's continuity. I heard later that Mark took a personal leave. That's the phrase they used. No bitterness attached to it, just distance. His name stopped coming up. Systems don't miss ego, they miss stewardship. At Archer, my work stayed steady. I reviewed transitions, flagged risks, asked questions no one liked at first, and appreciated later. The work wasn't flashy, it worked. One afternoon, while organizing a folder, I came across a lease agreement from a different client. Different city, different company, same clause buried near the end. Custodial authority assigned to someone everyone assumed would always be there. I made a note, not to warn them, not yet, just to remember how often this happens. How many people carry invisible responsibility until the day someone decides they don't matter anymore. That evening, I walked home instead of taking the train. The air was cooler, the sidewalks familiar. I stopped at the grocery store, bought what I needed, nothing extra. At home, I put everything away, wiped the counter again, and sat down with my tea. Quiet isn't empty when it's earned. If you've been listening and this story felt familiar, you're not alone. There are more like it. Different offices, different cities, same quiet mistakes. I've been asked to step into another one recently, different name, same pattern. I'll tell that story when it's time. If you're part of this little corner of the internet, I'm glad you're here. If the story helped you slow down, even better. If you'd like to support the channel, a gentle reminder to like and subscribe. It helps more than you think. And if you're still listening, drop a comment and tell me what city you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I read them when things are quiet. 2 more stories will appear next. Different situations, same calm truths. Take care of yourself.